Hi everybody, this is Teri from Technique Tuesday, and I'd like to give you some tips for easier die cutting when using fine line steel dies. So take a look at these dies here. You'll find these dies have some pretty small, intricate details to them, or intricate cuts. So if you look at that arrow, you'll see there's some tiny circles there, as well as on the clock, you'll see some small numbers, as well as some small lines. Sometimes it can be a little challenging to get a good cut with dies like these because there are so many fine cuts involved. So let me just show you a few tricks that I find helpful for when I'm cutting dies like these. The first thing I find really helpful is to use a shim with my die cutting machine. Now I'm using a big shot machine when I die cut. You may be using a different kind of machine, so be sure to check with the manufacturer of your die cutting machine to find out how shims work with it. For my machine, I typically will use a metal plate, and then we'll also use some pieces of cardstock to act as a paper shim. So here's kind of how it works. Here's my cutting platform, and then I've set a couple pieces of cardstock on top of it. And then I've set my metal plate. Now my big shot machine's kind of old, and so it's adjusted over the years. So I find that I need to add a little extra shim when I use it. Your die cutting machine may work differently, so make sure you mess around with it just to try out to see what works best with your machine. So there's my metal shim, and then I'm set a cutting plate as well as a piece of cardstock that I want to cut with on top of it. So the next thing, or next trick I want to show you, is that it's helpful when you run your dies through your machine is to run them at an angle. There's something about getting it through the machine that angle oftentimes helps you to get a better cut. So here I've set the dies at an angle, I've set my cutting plate on top, and then I'm going to run them through my machine. So you'll see they shifted a little from the time that I put that cutting plate on top, but you get the idea. They came at an angle. And so after I've run them through, I've lifted up the cutting plate, and check this out. So you see I've gotten all those little fine cuts to pop out or come out of the dies. And that brings me to the next trick. The next thing that I find really helpful is to make sure with these dies with such small cuts involved that you always clear the holes. So with Technique Tuesday, you'll notice like sometimes you'll see those little pieces of paper that are stuck in those open spaces. What you'll notice with our dies is our dies have holes built into them. So you're going to want to use a piercing tool or a good old-fashioned push pin or straight pin to poke those extra pieces of paper out. So you see, here's the clock, and then I've just taken that pin and I've gone all the way around it to poke those holes out, or extra pieces of paper out. So when I've done that, I've ended up with something that looks like this. So you might be wondering why that's important. Well, what can happen is if you keep that paper in there, it's going to build up over time, and then you're not going to get those little images to cut out for you. So it's really important to keep those cleared out. So those are just a few tricks for you that hopefully will help you to have easier die cutting when using dies with small, fine lines. By the way, do you like to die cut? Well, guess what, folks? We've got more than 40 different steel dies available through Technique Tuesday. We also have a number of digital cut files available for those of you who are digital cut file fans.